Well, it's been a while. After a grueling 4-year wait, Deltarune chapters 3 and 4 have finally released to once again pretty much universal acclaim. After playing them myself and then immediately replaying them, there were so many smaller details that I missed and even some people discuss online that I felt it was incredibly appropriate for me to make my own iceberg chart about the chapters and talk about it here for you today. There is a lot to get through on this one as I kept finding interesting topics and theories and then I just kept adding them over time, and that's why the video ended up being this long. Thank you so much for the support over the last couple of years. Since that last video, it's just been amazing. All my sources will be listed in the description, and please enjoy this video. Spamton Sweepstakes 1. Spamton Sweepstakes was a charity event by Fangamer and Toby Fox on September 17th, 2022, where users could donate to the Child's Play charity for a chance to win various prizes, like every piece of Deltarune merch, a Spamton body pillow, a Spamton engraved wedding ring, and so much more. While that was going on, there was also a variety of websites that you could find which all had Easter eggs that could be found in Chapter 3, such as an early reveal of the Green Room, lore drops about December, this gumball machine and chair, Noelle's blog about cat petters and dragon blazers, which mainly revealed that she applied a spam letter she received to cat petters in a universe game, creating the Pippus egg and Spamton, along with just random videos and hints at Chapter 3. This all led to the final reward that people could get, the ability to choose Spamton's fate, either freeing him or silencing him. The freeing him route led to a livestream showing the Spamton Value Network, a satire and infomercial channels hosted by and created by Wayne Radio TV's crew. It ended with the Fangamer dads from the Chapter 1 livestream cutting in to end the stream, with Spamton's impersonator running out to a phone and calling Spamton for help, with him getting eaten by something unknown at the end. Overall, at the time, it was incredibly cool to see all the Chapter 3 previews and see the incredible work done on the Spamton Value Network. There was more to this event, but we'll come back to that later. Friend Inside Me. Friend Inside Me refers to one of the most infamous Deltarune theories and memes, with it all stemming from Toby Fox's Tumblr, in which he remixed the song You've Got a Friend in Me, which I can only play a small part of, or else this video will get no ads, and I'm gonna be real, I like money. Friend inside me. Friend inside me. These remixes, yes there are multiple, along with a weird notice in a newsletter talking about how the cowboy section in Chapter 3 was supposedly cancelled, led YouTuber Spooky Dude to make a theory about Toy Story, Friend Inside Me, and cowboys, which were all connected to the Chapter 3 secret boss. A theory that was pretty popular and a meme amongst the Deltarune community. This all culminated in a Twitter account called Friend Inside Me, which would reply to people either sending their photo to like a black and white picture of Woody, or send this classic image. While Friend Inside Me was disproven due to Chapter 3 secret boss content not aligning with the theory, it was still referenced in mic rooms in Deltarune Chapter 4. Eggs. The eggs are a hidden collectible that you can find in each chapter of Deltarune. The first two are found in seemingly random ways. When walking in between two rooms, there's a small chance you'll be teleported to a room containing a man behind a tree who gives you the egg. In Chapter 1, this is in between the room with the Star Walker and the room with the ballerinas. In Chapter 2, it can be found in between the room where you get hit by the annoying dog and the room leading into that scene. Chapter 3 setup is much more calculated, involving several steps to actually get into the room, but having a lot more of a payoff. In Chapters 1 and 2, all the dialogue you get from the man who gives you the eggs is quite minimal, basically just saying, well, there is a man here, well, there isn't a man here. But in Chapter 3, after putting this block in this one game across the water, getting caught by one of the guards saying you're going nowhere, you'll get teleported to a room where you solve some more puzzles and talk to this old man who gives you a ticket to leave the Ribek fire and escape it, where you end up in a retro video game world called Forgotten Island, where you can talk to the man behind the tree, who calls himself the Forgotten Man and worries that Chris will forget them. So you just answer that you won't forget them among other prompts. They reveal that they've been here for a very long time, reveal their schedule if lines up with the previous egg locations, like for example, on Friday I toss the leftovers in the dumpster, and the Chapter 2 egg is found next to a dumpster. You promise not to forget them and they give you the egg and tell you to store it somewhere. An important piece of dialogue they say is whether 11 hours or 11 years, Deltarune will be waiting, which is interesting. Deltarune is spelled like the game, not like the Deltarune, which is how the speaker of the start of the game spells it. Anyway, in Chapter 4 things are just as easy to get to in the first two chapters, kind of, but it gives some pretty interesting lore. If you go to the room with the many windows and go to the 100th window and go in and out of the room, you'll be taken to this hospital area where the receptionist says that the patients are waiting for Chris, and when you go inside, you're taken into some sort of art club, which is definitely a form of art therapy. There are two people in the art club, a person who's painting a picture and says, "This is where we draw pictures and don't kill each other," which is interesting. There's also the man who's normally behind the tree there as well. Eventually, Chris picks up a pencil and tries sketching the tree and ends up smearing the whole canvas in grey. Then a tree gets painted over that. Then you get to pick up the egg from another canvas nearby. You eventually try to wash all the grey off your hands in the sink, but some pencil stays on there, with the text saying you can never wash it away. This seems to be pointing towards some sort of therapy that Chris needed to take because something they possibly did or saw. I'm assuming saw because of the phrase of washing the grey away. I've seen some interpretations of this meaning that Chris may have killed a monster or something. This is very interesting and definitely implies that Chris feels guilty for doing something. Weird Route. The Weird Route, or Snowgrave, or Side B, or alternate route to Deltarune is basically the Deltarune equivalent of Undertale's Genocide route. Chapter 1 doesn't really contain it, as if you do Genocide you go into a neutral route with a less full castle town and different ending cutscene. But Chapter 2 really expands on this concept. It involves a lot more setup when compared to Undertale's, yet shifts the story in a similar way. The route involves you backtracking with Noelle through the Cyber City, defeating every enemy along the way using her ice magic, eventually purchasing her a freeze ring which upgrades her spells. After freezing more enemies, you purchase the Thorn Rings, while also making Noelle proceed on every dialogue interaction. Eventually you fight Birdly, force Noelle to do a spell which kills Birdly and then cements the run. From this point onwards and previously there are many different story differences, with Noelle being manipulated by you, the player, and Spamton becoming the final boss instead of the Queen. Chapter 3 doesn't have a traditional weird route, but, and I'll talk about this more later, the mental game in it explores the same themes in Chapter 2's weird route, and can even be seen as a retroactive tutorial for it featuring scenes from it. Chapter 4, however, offers a lot more for the weird route. Chapter 4 already had a lot of theming of separating Chris and the player, but the weird route further expands on this, primarily in the light world. The Chapter 4 weird route contains one of the most disturbing scenes in Deltarune yet, where Chris takes the soul out, Noelle comes upstairs and talks to them with the soul moving back into Chris's body, and you telling Noelle how the events of Chapter 2's weird route are all true, and you force her to put on the Thorn Ring. It cuts to Chris in the bathroom, grabbing the soul, throwing it into a bin and kicking it over and over again, showing how much Chris hates you for making them do that to their friends. The rest of the chapter just has minimal dialogue changes, most harrowing being Ralsei being uncomfortable discussing Noelle. WD Gaster.
That's right guys, I am the first Deltarune YouTuber to talk about the super niche and underground character. Also subscribe if you want.
WD Gaster is a character that is mentioned in Undertale by his so-called followers and potential appearance in this room. He's an incredibly popular character. I don't actually know why I'm explaining all this to you, but in Undertale he was the previous royal scientist, and while he was working on something important, he fell into his own machine and was lost across time and space. His mystery and intrigue has made him a character that's very common to hear discussion on, as he's one of the few remaining loose ends from Undertale. And this is spread across to Deltarune as well. Not only can his motif, which can be heard in the secret sound test room in Undertale, be heard in multiple Deltarune songs. But additionally, his Entry 17 lab report is the same sound that you can hear when calling Chris's phone in the Dark World. When typing his name at the start of the game, it either crashes or resets it, and the 2015 version of the Deltarune website contained a quote from this lab report, being, "This next experiment seems very, very interesting." Gaster's way of speaking has been compared to the man who talks to the start of the game and the man behind the tree, leading to several theories that he is directly involved with Deltarune and will appear in some way. I definitely think it could be Gaster involved in Deltarune, but I'm also willing to believe it could just be a random new character. Everyman cameos. Everyman is a character that appeared in Undertale and has had many cameo appearances in Deltarune. They're a part of Reaper Bird's attack from Undertale and the True Lab. They're this little white blob here. Despite its minimal and almost meaningless appearance, they've been cited multiple times in Deltarune. The first time you can see them is in Jevil's carousel attack, where sometimes the head of the duck can be replaced with Everyman's head. Later in Hometown, you can spot graffiti of it in the alleyway where Alphys leaves milk. You can also find Everyman in Chapter 2 during Queen's fight. This is during the social media attack. Everyman, however, doesn't actually appear in both Chapters 3 and 4, despite an unused sprite found in the files of Chapter 4. Rank rooms. In Deltarune Chapter 3, you get a rank assigned to you at the end of the rounds in the chapter. Depending on what rank you get, you can actually unlock more content. These range from Z, C, B, A, S, and T. The Z rank room is an exclusive rank to being so bad at the game you actually get rewarded. By achieving the Z rank, you get access to the Z rank changing room, which contains an unplugged old phone, a poster made by 2 people, and a manhole that lets you go to the S rank mantle game. Rank C lets you go into the room with the water cooler, B rank lets you go into the room with the capsule ball machine, A rank lets you go into the arcade, and S rank gets you the most so far. An exclusive minigame where you explore Chris's freedom called Mantle, which you also get into the Z rank room. This game is weird because despite you being able to play it on any route of the game, it explores themes that exist in the weird route and almost retroactively shows you how to get onto the weird route in Chapter 2, yet it can be done on the pacifist route in the game. It's in 3 different sections, with the third being the most heartbreaking, having you kill Susie and Ralsei and fight against this guy, John Mantle. It's fun, however there is still one more rank, T rank, which shows you a unique room and a new book showcasing Tanner's iconic move, a T-pose. Between this and the other meme references in chapter 3 and 4, I'm convinced this man is stuck in 2019. Carpet. Carpet refers to a shitpost made by Toby Fox during the development of chapters 3 and 4 on Blue Sky, a Twitter alternative. On Blue Sky, he originally posted photos and videos of drawing of roast chicken, which looks very similar to the climbing sprites, may I add. This eventually turned into a video where the roast chicken is in a house dancing while the song plays. The lyrics of this video are eventually revealed in his next post where the song is about carpet.
Carpet, 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 carpet. Check it out, I'm in the house like carpet, like carpet, carpet.
This is getting pretty wide traction, with a re-upload by Jojoton getting about 1.2 million views. Genders. I'm just adding this in because I feel like a lot of people in the community aren't really aware of this, and that's okay, we're all here to learn something. Basically, a lot of the misinformation I see involving gender online is about Ralsei and Chris. Ralsei is a guy, he's commonly described as a fluffy boy, and despite displaying stereotypically feminine attributes, he identifies as a man and is seen by that as everyone around him, getting called he. Chris, on the other hand, is always referred to as they, and before you say, oh well, people must mean that because there's two people in control of the Chris body. Well, while you may think this at first, Susie, Ralsei, and literally everyone around them calls them they, and besides maybe Ralsei, they don't know that Chris is being controlled by someone else. In addition to this, Toby Fox in a live stream did correct someone calling Chris him.
He's stuck in a
He's stuck in a cutscene. You can't do it.
Chris cannot reach
You
it.
can't do it.
They're stuck.
From this, we can gather that Chris identifies as something outside of the gender binary, maybe being gender non-conforming, maybe non-binary. So if you take something away from this video, it's very rough out there for trans people at the moment. Please go and share some love with them. Pluie. Pluie refers to two things to different times of the Deltarune community. Pre-chapter 3 and 4, Toby had posted on Blue Sky saying that he still needed to implement Pluie, followed up later by a post saying that Pluie had been implemented. This sent the community into a frenzy trying to figure out what Pluie could be. People assumed it was PlayStation UI, others assumed it was this little guy created by 8byte or Neo Shooting Star. However, in the epilogue of chapter 4, where you can go back to Castle Town, Pluie is revealed to be the minigame that Cat Mike allows you to play. There is some evidence of Pluie referring to the minigame, not Cat Mike, as in the minigame you move cats away from the rain, with Pluie in French meaning rain. Also, the other names of the minigames are right here. They are clearly the name of the games, not the characters. Yes, that is right, Pluie reveal. Geneva Conventions. The Geneva Conventions are humanitarian laws that impact multiple countries, with one being related to Deltarune being the restriction on this Red Cross emblem. This symbol can only be used as an image of protection in armed conflict by the Red Cross, meaning that places like hospitals, first aid kits, and video games cannot use them. The person working at the hospital in Deltarune Red Big Mouth has a Red Cross on their hat. This means that in Deltarune chapters 1 to 2, Toby Fox was violating the Geneva Convention laws. This was fixed with the official release of the game, changing the Red Cross to a blue one. Spamton Sweepstakes 2. And we're back to this. On May 8th, 2025, in a Deltarune newsletter, Toby Fox had announced that the alternative ending that was planned was now available to see on the website. This had a video where the fan gamer dad expressed how they didn't think people would vote for Spamton to be silenced and they didn't really know what to do, with Wayne Spamton disappearing at the end. All the prizes on the website are now grayed out with no text on them, and there's a purple box at the bottom of the website leading to Noel's blog. Below that, there's text reading what's next. Clicking on it takes you to the green room, however a bit modified. If you click on the store area where RAM normally is in game, it takes you to two brown doors. Clicking on which plays a noise and has an invisible link that takes you to a different page. If you don't click on it in time, it takes you to a page that says, if only you had the blank, your luck might have gone another way. No blank, no crystal. If you're able to click the link in time, it takes you to deltarune.com/chapter 3, with text on the screen saying not applicable. Going through Noelle's blog, she is kindly linked a game about cats, which is a bit of fun to play. If you find an angel cat, it redirects you to a page of stained glass windows, mirroring an error in chapter 4. Looking onto the 36th window leads you to Lost Where the Forest Would Grow, a prophecy image with a tree on it. Clicking on that plays a piano chord and takes you back to the window page. The 18th link will take you to the Poor Children, the page being called Therapy. Going on enough takes you back to a blog. Circling back to the chapter 3 website, you can also take a look at chapters 1, 2, and 4. 1 also saying not applicable, 2 saying applicable, and 4 having a fading red pixel on the screen, leading you to a blank page that has an invisible keyboard on it. Different sound effects on this website would play depending on what letter you type. People ended up finding that the letters that spelled thank you would play a different sound effect when they were clicked, which led people to go to deltarune.com/chapter4/thank you. This would take you to a page with 2 fields on it. Most people entered their real email and phone number, something I definitely didn't do. Why would I do that? Come on, guys. And then would say thank you, which is now what the website says now. The website is also called How Long Did It Take For Her to Smile, with the numbers being how long you thought it took, with leaving it blank giving the response she never smiled ? Finally going to deltarune.com/chapter5 links to all the other chapter websites, with all of them being weird sizes and having songs attached to them. Pulsar cannons. The pulsar cannons refer to the guns that shoot the TV screen during the round 1 cookie minigame when you press W in chapter 3. This seems completely random, doesn't it? But actually, if you see Ralsei's manual through the game files, it ended up being unused in the final game, being unreadable because of its denseness. Not only will you find some beta elements, but also in the control section for the W key, you'll see under the cooking tab it very clearly says that this brings the pulsar cannons. Another fun fact about the manual is that it's inside the hat Ralsei plushie, like the physical one. It's not in the hatless one, there's a cake, but I don't want to find out if it's inside mine, it's too cute. Wait, why has it got a knife? Oh god, please don't kill me! Chapter 3 icon changing. The icon for chapter 3 when you open the game is a picture of Tenna's smile, as indicated by the lines in the teeth. However, when you beat the chapter it changes to the knight smile, as in is this comparison here. Unknown letter. For the winter 2024 newsletter, Toby Fox included various love letters from the characters to the player. These range from cute to showing some more love to Jevil to referencing Ralsei smoking, but one letter stood out amongst the rest. A letter from the mystery man who talks in the same way as the voice from the Gonna Maker sequence.
Well, Happy New Year. Or was it the old year? Well, in any case, how is Deltarune? As you are waiting patiently, the time is going around. There was even a rumor of Valentine's Day. How absurd. Every day is a day of love, if only you believe it so. Do you believe it so? So, the purpose of this message, I want to help. Yes, there was someone I wanted to help. I seem to have forgotten who. Yes, it's quite ironic, but I seem to have forgotten. Was it myself? No. Well, perhaps. Regardless, when I see them, I'm certain I will know it straight away. I never forget someone I don't remember. Will you help me? You are very odd, responding out loud to a letter. But you seem reliable. I will be counting on you. Now put on your coat and wash your face, or put on your face and wash your coat. Not necessarily in that order, or in any order at all. Goodbye.
The most interesting thing that this letter discusses is the character's struggle to remember certain things, which definitely connects this letter from the man behind the tree from chapter 3, who worries Chris will forget him and that he'll forget himself too, along with the reminder to wash your face.
So take your time, wash your face, and get dressed.
Also, this letter is sourced from a very talented artist in the Deltarune community, Ceriisu. I pestered her for some things about this letter, thank you so much. Anagram theory. Anagrams are evident all throughout Deltarune. In fact, there's one there. Swap the letters of Deltarune and you get Undertale and Nut Dealer. I wonder which is the more important revelation. One of the more obvious anagrams is Ralsei and Azriel, as the game is now pretty clearly shown in the similarities between the two, other than the most obvious being, look at them. Other anagrams that fit are Chris and Risk and Susie and Issue. I've spoken about these in my other 2 Iceberg videos, but with the latest chapters, I feel like there's a new meaning to these anagrams. Risk for Chris, which could be the risk that Carol the Knight and whoever is involved in the Dark World mystery, seeing Chris as a risk to their whole operation, as Risk is also working with the fun game to stop Carol and the Knight. Susie being Issue is also a lot more obvious, as Susie represents an issue to their operation, which is a lot more clearly said when Carol commands Chris to not let Susie get Das's guitar. Sans is from Deltarune. A common fan theory suggests that Sans Undertale isn't actually Sans Undertale, but rather Sans Deltarune. This theory has got some pretty good legs to stand on. I even made a whole video about it, but I'll give you guys the rundown. In his genocide dialogue, he talks about wanting to go back to some place but giving up. And in his workshop, you can find a photo of 3 people with the text "Don't Forget" written on it, which is a very clear nod to Deltarune's credit song.
The drawing is also poorly drawn, which I know this sounds mean. It could allude to Ralsei's manual. He does like drawing, so this could be him drawing it. As well as a badge in there, which could be the police badge that's referenced on the shelter's keypad. Maybe this is a reference, but maybe he is from this world. There's a lot more evidence, but honestly, it's more easy to check out my other video after you're done with this one. It's a pretty good one.
Device theory. The device theory is an incredibly popular fan theory of Deltarune by Molly Stars, which was released in 3 parts spanning 10 hours in length. I don't want to give it a full rundown because I want you to go onto Molly Stars' YouTube channel and give them a watch. I want you to go and subscribe to their Patreon because this video series is incredibly fucking cool. It talks about an element of Deltarune I feel like we're slowly losing and I'm already starting to miss a lot. The original 2018 version of the game. Originally, when it was first released onto PC, Deltarune wasn't installed as Deltarune, but rather a survey program. The device theory talks about how Deltarune isn't really a game, but a device that allows us to access the world of Deltarune. A lot of evidence for this is like how the game's files are structured weirdly, some sounds are labeled differently in the game's files, and 10 hours more of this sort of stuff. Despite being a pre-Chapter 3 and 4 theory, it's held up incredibly well in my opinion, as the separation between Chris and the player becomes even more evident, along with things like the file structure still complying to how it was laid out pre-release. This theory is incredibly cool, go check it out when you're done with this video. Asgore Piss. Asgore Piss refers to some sprites of Asgore in Undertale where you see him watering some plants with a watering can. However, Toby never actually showed him using the watering can, leading to some posts talking about how Asgore is actually pissing on the flowers instead of watering them. This was later referenced in Chapter 4, where sprites of Asgore using the watering can are labelled as not piss, and ones where you can't see the watering can labelled as piss. Toriel's alcoholism. Toriel and alcoholism is a theme that isn't just evident in Deltarune, but also seen throughout Undertale. It culminates at the end of Chapter 4, with Toriel and Sans dancing, with Toriel being so drunk on wine she falls to the floor and continues talking with Sans late into the night, making it so Chris, her child who's just been missing all day in a town that suddenly had a police officer disappear, incredibly embarrassed, stressed, and unable to sleep. She doesn't just drink in Deltarune, however. There's some dialogue from the cancelled alarm clock app from Fly where he recounts a story about how Toriel was living in loneliness in the ruins, with her forgetting to sleep and eat because of it. One time Flowey found her splayed out the door in weakness, saying how she couldn't even take care of herself. She rambled about never letting go of Azrael and then falling asleep. Flowey then placed a glass of water next to her, but this all does suggest that while being isolated from people in the ruins, Toriel did drink to help cope with her issues, which has come full circle in Deltarune in some sort of way. There are other perspectives of this too, with Sans and Pyro both mentioning how she doesn't handle her drinks well. Now obviously in Deltarune she is drinking recreationally, celebrating and having fun with Sans, which she is completely in her right to do, but you still have to see how this event would have affected Chris, with Susie becoming immediately embarrassed and leaving. It's a pretty heavy situation with many sides affected by it. Flower King for Chapter 5. There is a lot of evidence to suggest that Asgore and his flower shop will be the basis of Deltarune Chapter 5. First of all, the prophecy talks about a flower man trapped in an asylum, in which the picture very clearly depicts Asgore from Undertale, suggesting that he'll be the next boss. This is further continued in Gerson's Lord of the Hammer prophecy, which mirrors the entirety of Deltarune. Chapter 1, March of the Dark King, Chapter 2, The Shining City, Chapter 3, The Lost Land, Chapter 4, The Hammer Trial, and Chapter 5 being associated with the Garden of Pink and Gold, 2 colours that are heavily associated with Asgore. All of these signs point to Asgore appearing, maybe being the boss or secret boss of Deltarune Chapter 5. Tenor animation sources. Tenor's silly little dances weren't animated by Toby or the team, but rather can be found on the stock animation website Mixamo, which I just think makes the dance even funnier. A fun fact about this is that Toby started working on Tenor in 2016, with this 3D model serving as his starting point. Ralsei dialogue differences with a Snowgrave save. As I was talking about earlier in the weird route on Chapter 4, Ralsei can have different dialogue when talking about Noelle. There's also a few scenes in Chapter 3 where this is the case as well. When Ralsei asks who you're going to take to the festival and you answer with Noelle on a weird route save, Ralsei will respond with, Noelle? Chris, I think that's a bad choice. I mean, I'm sorry, a bad choice to make alone. Noelle might want to go with Susie. I hope you can figure out a nice solution. This is very clearly referring to what happened with Noelle last chapter during the weird route. Ralsei knows what you've done, but doesn't have the power or knowledge on how to stop you from doing it again. Black Deer Sprites. During the Mantle game, there's this section where you have to solve a puzzle using a mirrored version of yourself, which is a fun little puzzle until you kill it. But in the code of the game, there is something much deeper going on. When the mirrored entity is spawned, it activates a variable called Toriel, which changes its sprites. Instead of spawning as the sprite we see in the game, it originally gets spawned as these black deer sprites. Then the Toriel variable changes it to be what we end up seeing. If you remove the Toriel variable, the puzzle and activity of the mirrored entity still works perfectly. Call this an insane theory, but it's almost like Toby knew people were going to search for this. Why else would you name a variable that does something that it really shouldn't have to, as the sprites should be the default one anyway if the deer were placeholders? after a character in your game. It looks like Toby's trying to tell us that potentially Toriel's trying to cover up something to do with a deer, maybe deaths for instance, in the same way that the Toriel variable covers up the deer sprites from being seen from the player. What's in the prophecy? In Deltarune Chapter 4, there's a pretty integral part of the prophecy missing, which leaves Susie in complete shock and disarray, saying, I wouldn't let it happen, Chris wouldn't let it happen, and obviously you wouldn't let it happen to Ralsei. There's no way to say for sure what could be in the prophecy, and there wasn't much left over in the game files to analyze, so it's left up to the theorists to figure out what it could possibly mean. I'll first talk about my personal interpretation of this line, which is related to someone dying. The way that Susie talks about it seems like someone close to them is going to die, and because of how heavily Noelle is mentioned throughout the prophecy, I personally believe that she is going to die. Another believed theory is that Ralsei is going to die permanently. This lines up with the obviously you that Susie says, and also lines up with Ralsei talking down to himself about the others throughout the chapters. There's also many other theories about the prophecy being the weird route, as you can equip swords on Noelle in the game's code, which would line up with this image in the prophecy. Penumbra Phantasium. How the fuck do you pronounce that? Penumbra Phantasm. Wait, really? Penumbra Phantasm. Penumbra Phantasm refers to a Toby Fox song that became the focus of a Deltarune fan theory. The song was made while Toby was working on Homestuck and is regarded as one of his best songs by the Undertale and Deltarune community. The song ended up being unused in Homestuck, yet contains many similar motifs to ones found in Undertale and Deltarune, mainly being the one found in the Holy. There is a lot of evidence that this song was also being workshopped for Deltarune, with the inception of the game being around the same time as the song was created in 2011. Penumbra also means the point between light and dark, which definitely has themes within Deltarune like the world's edge. Toby has also spoken about light and dark meaning a lot, such as his first tweet. When he was asked about the song in Tumblr in 2011, he responded with, "At Shadow's edge, shatter the twilight reverie," the same kind of wording found in the prophecy throughout Deltarune. This theory was however deconfirmed, with Toby saying that no Homestuck music or melodies would appear in Deltarune. But maybe it's just tricky Tony waiting to surprise us again. Weird route changes for Chapter 4. I'm also going to be issuing a trigger warning for mention of sexual assault during this section. If you want to skip ahead, I've left a timestamp on screen. The weird route has actually been changed a few times in Chapter 4 because of this scene, where you force Noelle to crypt the Thorn Ring. Which, by the way, is one of the most deeply unsettling things to happen in this game. But the imagery of what happens to Noelle after you make her equip it has been changed multiple times, with the original release build being a rose wilting away on screen. This was eventually changed due to the scene getting criticism as a rose is a symbol of sexual assault, which was later patched as Toby said that it was an unattended symbol. It was replaced with a red dot, which carries on part of the lore from Spanton Sweepstakes Chapter 4 page, but this was eventually updated to be this heart-shattering animation, which I definitely think is the strongest so far, even if I like the continued imagery from the red dot of Spanton Sweepstakes. Shelter code. The code to the shelter that you see in Chapter 4 is 122 and then it gets cut off. Knowing the Holiday family and seeing that the code was in December's guitar, we can assume that the code is something to do with Christmas, making the code 1225, the 25th of the 12th month. Yes, I know that Americans do dates stupidly, don't blame me. 1225 can also be entered on the Gumball machine in Chapter 3, in which you can go inside and try and pick up a triangle, but it slips through your hand, and then you can't find your hand, which is a pretty good segue to Chris losing hand theory. Hands are a motif that have always been prevalent throughout Deltarune, yet only became something of note during the release of Chapters 3 and 4. For Chapter 3 and 4, looking at the Shadow Crystal in Chapter 1's Light World says that you thought you could see through your hand. Queen has these detachable hands. This dialogue when looking at the giant hand says it looks like the hand is out of the way now, but there's even more evidence in Chapter 3 and 4. As I was saying in the previous section, when you try and pick up the triangle, it slips through your hand, and then you can't find your hand. During the night fight, Susie says, as long as Chris has a hand to lift me up with, and when you try and tell Susie that you'll never play piano again, Chris bites down on their hand. There definitely seems to be a lot of evidence that Chris will lose their hand during one of the chapters. Maybe it will be replaced with the vessel's hand, I don't know, but this is very interesting. Leaks. While there are many fake leaks spread about Deltarune, there was an actual soundtrack leak of Deltarune Chapters 3 and 4 the day before they were set to release. At first, songs on SoundCloud were copyrighted with the full names being revealed. This mainly impacted songs that we already knew about, Castle Funk and Another Day in Hometown. But the next day, on the American Society of Composers, Authors and Publishers website, all the songs from Deltarune Chapters 3 and 4's soundtrack had fully leaked. Yet people were still trying to spread leaks around, and that's why the only account you should follow for Deltarune leaks should be legit Deltarune leaks. Reset Easter egg. In the epilogue to chapter 4, you can go into Mike's room and play some mouse-based minigames. While these are super fun and probably one of my favourite parts of chapter 4, there's a super cool Easter egg hiding in here. If you go and interact with the reset bomb, or Michael bomb as it's called, it'll reset all of your scores. The way this is done is by typing Michael into the bomb, which is similar to how when you type Gaster in the Gorna Maker, the game resets. After the explosion, the word reset is played on your screen and this song plays. Half of you are probably like, okay, it sounds like Metal Crusher, and the other half of you are going, holy shit, that's Grandpa Semi's theme, and you'd be correct. The song that plays with the reset is the unused character from Undertale's song, Grandpa Semi. I don't think this has any lore implications, I was just very interested when I found this out and wanted to talk about it. Board 3. As discovered in the game's files, it was actually meant to be a third board of TV time. You can kind of infer this just from looking at the final game, where the Susie Zilla minigame is included but never actually played on any board. Board 3 takes place in TV Tropolis, with it being structured similarly to the other boards. Some of the areas in Board 3 are actually reused in the Mantle game, which is very interesting to me, as I thought these areas would have taken heavy inspiration from the Cyber City in Chapter 2. Many of these NPCs don't even have dialogue, they just have test dialogue. There's even a quiz segment which adds some incredible context to everyone's favourite Deltarune theory, Friend Inside Me, where it talks about Asgore's favourite show being a cowboy show, which is unfortunately cancelled, lining up with the email that we got sent. I cannot believe that it's actually here. The board gets cut short as when you enter the TV tower you've got to answer 20 questions. Tenna goes insane with features on the game and Susie sprays yogurt on a controller to stop Tenna from talking, which makes Tenna freak out even more and a yogurt emergency happens. It sucks this wasn't included in the final game, but I honestly think it's probably for the best. As much as I would have liked another board with Tenna, I think the pacing of chapter 3, while pretty good, had a bit of moments where it was a bit slow, so having a third board would have just made that even worse. Player is the Angel. The player is the angel is a theory I find incredibly interesting. One of the largest pieces of evidence being how the angel section, the prophecy in chapter 4, has no image with it, with some theories suggesting that's supposed to be a reflection as you see yourself in the black screen. In a video by Kez Magic, they highlight the image that is there in the prophecy, normally just a black screen, but instead, you'll see Castle Town, the town that it's named after you. There are also theories that the angel is Gaster, or the man at the start of the game, wanting to see his experiments completed, with the line, the angel banished will finally meet with its desire. But I also think this works better with the hidden image of the player, as our desire is to play another game, so while Gaster completing his experiments is his desire, it also lines up with us being the angel. Lancer getting stoned. That's really horrible phrasing, why did I put it like that? I've had a lot of my friends ask in chapter 3, how come Lancer and Rules and all the other characters seen throughout our adventure so far don't turn to stone like they did in chapter 2, as that was a pretty important plot point of the chapter. If you backtrack all the way back to the room where he was playing games, you can actually find Lancer in his statue form. Blood inconsistency. Blood is a topic in Deltarune that ironically makes my blood boil. In chapter 1, there are two contradictory statements about blood. The first one from Susie is when she's talking to Lancer, Ralsei, and Chris and says, everybody bleeds, right? So it sounds like blood exists and monsters can actually bleed, as compared to Undertale where they don't bleed and just turn to dust. Lancer mentions blood going into this bucket as well earlier in the chapter, and I definitely didn't forget that from my script, and that's why I'm not just recording it now. However, in Hometown, one of the kids living in the apartment asks, does it hurt to be made of blood, after noticing Chris is a human, suggesting that only humans can bleed. Chapter 4 adds so much more fuel to this fire. There's a scene once you close the first Dark World in the church where Susie and Chris look at a case containing a metal hammer, a photo of the old man, and dust. Susie connects this to monsters dying, saying when monsters die their dust is buried, suggesting that monsters turn into dust when they die. However, near the end of chapter 4 where Susie is rushing to see the end of the prophecy, she ends up breaking the glass and starts bleeding from the hand. So what the fuck does any of this mean? Also, that sprite with blood on Ralsei's face is fucking awesome. Goddamn, this is my favorite scene in chapter 4, but what the fuck? Maybe this means that monsters in Deltarune have some sort of magic in the lie world that I don't know about, because they still turn to dust, but also have more biological elements than the monsters from Undertale. It's very weird because right now it doesn't really seem like an important plot point, something that's just glanced over until chapter 4. In fact, until chapter 4 it kinda just seemed like a writing error, but who knows? There was also a sprite in chapter 1 of Susie bleeding found in the game's files, but it was removed. I feel like this was either to help make the blood issue more consistent, or to save monsters bleeding for more dramatic moments as seen in chapter 4. I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video, it really means a lot to me. This video took a lot of time and effort to make, I've been working over it for the last month, pretty much since the chapters came out, I immediately started working on this video.
and the fact that you've stuck all the way to the end of the video really means a lot to me. It's been a while since I've dropped one of these Deltarune Iceberg videos. I mean, like, last one dropped in like 2021 and I was like 17 and now I'm 21. Jesus. I want to thank so many people who were involved in this video's production. There were so many people. Ceriisu and Jojoton, I mentioned them in their relevant sections, but they were a great help for me. I asked them a bunch of questions. Super nice people. Some of my favorite people in the Deltarune community, honestly. As well as Shayy and GeoBlitzy, they provided their voices for this video, and it was so awesome working with them. Their segments came out incredibly. Shayy did the voice from the unused dialogue, and GeoBlitzy did the man behind the tree. They both did stellar jobs. It was amazing. I also want to thank all of my friends who supported me throughout the video production, whether that be watching me play Deltarune, talk to me about it, or just letting me vent about how much I love these chapters. Thank you so much. With that out of the way, if you guys want to see more of what I've done, go onto my YouTube channel, Peers Club. It's where I've been uploading most of my videos over the last like year and a half. It's just got a bunch of like general gaming videos, but if you do like me, like my presentation style, check those ones out. The most important person I forgot to thank is you. Thank you so much for the support over the last 3 years. It really means so much to me. And thank you for everything. This isn't a goodbye, this is a I'll see you later, because as much as I want to say, these games are a part of me. So I'm always going to be coming back here and making some video. I'll see you in the next year for the next Iceberg video, I guess. Bye.